Step into the world where the mundane meets the extraordinary as we delve into the vibrant narrative of Candace MacPhie's Finding Color. It's a hilarious and messy backpacking adventure in the 90s and an insightful exploration of creativity, resilience, and the pursuit of adventure. Don't go away. We'll be right back with the Writer's Corner live show.
Imagine a world where the
Welcome to the Writer's Corner.
Imagine a world where the lines of reality blur with the fantastical. Embark on journeys from humble beginnings to the pinnacles of literary greatness. On the Writer's Corner, we delve into the lives of unique wordsmiths, known for their compelling storytelling. They are artisans who craft fantastical realms, etched in our memory long after the final page is turned. Every tale begins with a single word, a single idea. Authors create sensations that keep you on the edge of your seat. Witness how they transform setbacks into stepping stones. Use refusals to spark growth and turn rejections into catalysts for new inspiration. Witness the diversity in writing as it gives birth to a vast array of genres, from drama to mystery to children's stories, fantasy, and reality. Join us as we uncover sources of inspiration and the magic that defines the author's craft. Find out how authors breathe life into their characters and meticulously craft narratives and plots that captivate readers. Get a sneak peek into upcoming works, and join us as we celebrate literary greatness, only on the Writer's Corner. We don't just celebrate best-selling Amazon and New York Times authors, but also indie authors. Join us on the journey from the birth of a tale to the creation of a masterpiece, only on the Writer's Corner live show. Stay tuned.
If you have just joined us, then welcome to the Writer's Corner live show. If you are not yet following us on our social media channels, please do so, because that way you'll get notified when we go live. If you haven't met me yet, I'm Bridgetti Lim Banda from Cape Town in South Africa. And in today's show, we're going to be talking to Candace MacPhie. Our live stream is brought to you compliments of Creative Edge, StreamYard, and Be Live Media. But before we introduce our amazing guest today, and we can't wait to talk to her, I first want to introduce my amazing friend and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. If you haven't yet met Mary, she's a passionate author herself. She's a special needs and disabilities advocate, and she's very, very committed to amplifying underrepresented voices. Mary's also a speaker, educator, ghostwriter, and songwriter, and she's in Nashville. Mary, how are you today, my friend?
I am wonderful, and I'm so excited. Every Tuesday we get to come together and celebrate an amazing author, and we've been doing this 6 years. This July, I can't even believe it.
I know, it's crazy how quickly time goes by, and the fun never ends. You know, every week is a different author, different journey, different story, and we never get tired of it. And so for those of you who've never come across our amazing author yet today, Candace MacPhie is a globe-trotting adventurer turned author who brings her vibrant tales to life in the Back in a Year series. Now, with a career spanning 4 continents, including 2 decades in the corporate world, she now finds her true calling in storytelling. She balances family life with her passion for writing, and her humorous and authentic narratives capture the essence of her backpacking escapades from the 90s, she tells us. And so today we join her journey through laughter, love, and the Rocky Mountains, where every page promises to be adventurous. So let's give her a hearty warm welcome to the show today, shall we?
Yes.
Wow.
Welcome, Candace.
Hi there.
Welcome, Candace. We are delighted to have you.
Yeah, we're so excited you're here. Thank you so much for joining us today. And, you know, we're all moms and we're all authors and we're all busy. And one of the things I always like to tell people is you cannot wait for the cabin in the woods or the cottage by the beach. You just have to do it in the trenches. And it's otherwise you might as well just forget it because it's just usually not going to happen, right?
Absolutely.
And that's sort of what you've done. So we're going to just jump right in because we're so excited to have you and we have lots of questions. And so transitioning from the corporate world, like Bridgetti was reading from your bio, to storytelling is no small feat because they're two totally different planets, right, in the universe. What were some specific challenges you faced during the transition? How did you navigate through them to pursue your passion for writing? And anyone listening out there who would like to do the same but doesn't know how to do it, Candace is going to let us know.
Well, I'll let you know my journey. I think to start with, one of the most difficult parts was convincing my family, my crew, that this was a really good idea. It was very tangible. I went to work, I got a paycheck, people understood that. But the act of sitting in your office, typing away and writing before you published anything, I think the disconnect, my family didn't understand what I was doing. They would come in and peek over my shoulder and take a look. And so that was kind of my first challenge, was this, how to convince people that what I was doing was actually something that was going to be something. I think that was the hardest part, because it was very easy to whip up PowerPoints and lead teams and organize things at work, but to be able to put the words together in a way that told a story, that was my next challenge. So the first challenge was getting my family on side, and I didn't really get them on side until I published something, to be honest. I think they were supportive, but they didn't understand until they could feel the book, see the book. The next thing was very dangerous, because I thought I knew how to do this and I didn't. So I didn't know how to do this at all. I thought, yay, I've written a book, and I was so excited. And I interviewed a bunch of folks to help me with my next step in terms of getting editorial help, because I knew enough that I needed help. I just didn't know how far the journey was going to be at that point. I still had a significant amount, a long journey to go before I was really able to say, okay, that's a story. I didn't understand, when I first started, where, what I needed to elevate, what I needed to cut, what I needed to put in to make it a cohesive story. That took a very long time to learn, and a very patient editor that I worked with, who was willing to work with me and willing to help me develop the craft. And then I knew I kind of got there when I got feedback on the book rather than the writing style. So that took a while. And so the transition wasn't easy. And I like to think my answer would be that I would still write if I knew how much work it would be to learn how to do it. But, if you think about it, nothing comes easy. That's good, right? You have to practice. For you to expect to be good at something, which is what I did, is a little bit, I don't think that ever really happens. So those probably my two main challenges in terms of the transition out of the corporate world.
I think it's quite a sobering thing when it's like giving birth and your child going to school the first time. It's like, you're like, oh crap, I'm not ready for this. And I think it's kind of a similar feeling when you're putting when you hand that book over to an editor and you're just not ready for what's coming back. Like you think you would be, but you're not. You're not, because they don't carry the emotion that you have as a mom and as the author that just birthed that book. So it can be quite brutal and quite an eye-opener. Now, I want to know a little bit about, before you took on this journey, you did so much traveling, you had so many memorable moments throughout your life. Could you possibly share a particularly vivid moment or experience that didn't make it into Finding Color, and how does that reflect on the essence of your adventures?
Something that didn't make it into the book? I think this is, well, what didn't make it into the book was when I looked at the journals and I reread the journals. They were a little more whiny than I wrote in the book. I just didn't want to be that whiny. I think I had a lot more struggles and thoughts. Like there's a lot of struggles and thoughts in the book, but it's probably, I thought about it a lot more than I did. It would have been a terribly boring story if I'd put in every single sort of, my mind just goes. I have a busy mind. It's just working. And every single busy thought that overanalyzing spin was probably in the journal, and that didn't need to be in the book. It didn't. It just clouded things. So that's probably what I left out. But I was very specific to leave in all of the really dumb things I did. So I didn't edit myself in terms of looking at it from this perspective. My much more mature brain than I was then. I felt that it wasn't true to the story if I cut out the times when I was being maybe not as clever as I would have liked. So I left those ones in. It was just the sort of extreme emotions that got left out.
That's awesome. And, we don't know. I guess when we're writing, sometimes we feel like, what we think somebody might like, they may not like. And with the things that we think that somebody won't like, they end up liking. So it's really sometimes hard to tell until you kind of get in there and then learn that rhythm that you have learned. And, balancing humor with profound themes is the hallmark of your writing style, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through your approach to striking the delicate balance and the intentional choices? And you sort of have touched on that here a moment ago. You make to ensure both elements shine, and that they're both there in your storytelling, because it's sort of a great recipe.
Yeah, I think if I talk about my second book that is coming out in a couple of weeks, that book was tough because there's a lot of darker themes in that book, darker themes in terms of bad things that happen, basically. And dealing with those bad things as you go along. And every time I had thought about it, it was like The Empire Strikes Back. You know how I don't know if you watched that one, but it was so dramatic and so many bad things happened. But what made that movie so good to me was their humor, right? And the fact that there was quips and their relationships were so strong. And I think to me that kind of inspired my writing style for book 2, because I thought if I drag you down into this moment where, great things aren't happening, I need the humor. So it was easier for me than when I was writing book 2, because anything funny, anything amusing stayed in. It was always the funny stories and the crazy things that happened. Those were all welcome to stay in the book. And then the things that kind of went down, down deep, those were in there too. But it was this balance between keeping up and down, and anything that was very average. There was a lot of train trips. There was a lot of bus trips. You don't take everyone. You hear, oh, we got to a place. But the funny bus trips are in there, and the funny train trips are in there, and the times where we met really interesting characters are in there. And so that to me was the balance that I was able to strike with that, was really making sure that you weren't down too long and that you went back up and down. So it's kind of a bit of an up and down journey book too.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's funny how when I listen to you, there's a lot that I think readers can resonate with in your journey and the way that you share it so candidly. So your journey of self-discovery, very intricately woven into the fabric of your characters in the book. Have any of your personal experiences shaped the development of the characters? And if so, what are the parallels that you see between your own past and that of the protagonists in your book?
Oh, yes, that's a good one. If when I think about the I'm just going to just ask the sort of the second part in terms of the antagonist development. The antagonist in the first book, I feel like I'm almost my own antagonist in a lot of the ways in terms of how I self-sabotage, and I leave that in there. And there's a few people that aren't that great, but as I developed them and I've talked about the antagonists, I kind of really understood them a little more, and I didn't dislike them. I kind of understood where they were coming from. In the second book, the antagonist is really the environment. We have a lot of trouble in the environment. There's not one, there's a few people that aren't great, but it's typically the environment. So when I think about my relationship with the environment in terms of how I look at it, I like to think that as you go along the book, you'll see the development of the relationship between the two sort of main characters in the second book, and as they go along and deal with the environment, they get more desensitized and they develop along with it. So yeah, there's, in terms of I hope that answered your question. There is the visible. To me, I really tried to focus on the development of the characters around the what's trying to be solved in each book, and you can see that in terms of their relationship with the environment and with the people that they come across. Does that answer your question properly?
Yes, it absolutely does. Thank you.
Okay.
That's a very interesting. And okay, we are talking about Finding Color, your book Finding Color, and you have captured the essence of the 90s. And I know that required research. How can you shed some light on your research methods and how you ensured, to make sure that portrayal was very authentic in the book?
So everything from checking song references to I even found online, someone actually filmed this on a YouTube video, dial up to the internet, what it was used to be like the whale. So I actually watched that just to get the sounds right, so I could describe that in the, that impatience you're waiting for the internet dial up to happen. So, and everything from, what was available at the time and did that exist at the time. So a lot of it I had written in my journals, but I would go back and make sure that I had it right. I for example, had a drink from a Dunkin' Donuts cup, and I went back and looked and said, okay, what was the Dunkin' Donuts cup look like then? And it was actually styrofoam. So I had to say it was, I know, it was so funny, right? Would you drink from a styrofoam cup now? I think I would have a heart attack, right?
I know, right? You'd be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. But I said, oh, I have my styrofoam cup. And it was like, ooh, all right. Well, so just stuff like that to authenticate the experience from the internet to not having to use maps, to having to make phone calls. Now you would just have everything, all we had to, and I tried to keep reinforcing that all we had to rely on was this, this travel book and word of mouth. So you didn't have anything else. There was no Yelp reviews or anything like that to be able to say, oh, okay, that's not a good place to stay. You just had to try it out. So I think that is what I enjoy about the experience in terms of, you as a reader, if you had never experienced that time, you're right there, and you might think, oh wow, like why is it taking so long for that to happen? It's because there was no other choice. So
because we had to have patience back then.
Yes, exactly. And say I'll meet you at a certain time, not anything else.
All right, and be by the phone at the house. Oh my gosh, I think our children would just flat out die if they lived in our time period, because nothing moved fast. And it's like, I know you guys probably tell these stories too, but well, what did you do, Mom? Well, we went outside and we used our imagination. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, let's go out and try it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the kids are getting better, but they're just all like, I don't know. We saw an empty payphone the other day outside, and I said, Lily, look, there's a payphone.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole thing about calling home and how expensive it was, and I didn't do it very often and stuff like that. So yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's quite interesting, and a nice journey back into the past there. Now Now, as an author, your storytelling philosophy shapes the way that you engage with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
How do you hope that readers will connect with your work? And what do you ultimately aspire for them to take away from your stories?
Mm-hmm. I want it to be very easy to connect to. There's really no big fancy words. It's all pretty straightforward. I don't try to hide anything. There's no hidden mystery. It's a journey, right? So I didn't want, it's not complicated. It's, the complications come in the untangling of the emotions and in the untangling of what's happening throughout the journey. I wanted people to connect, when I started finding color, when I started the journey in finding color, it was a couple years after my mom died. She'd had cancer for 14 years. It was a long journey, and it really shaped who I was. It really shaped how I didn't know myself. It shaped the type of person I was. I was very proficient at hospital talk, but I did not know who I was, right? She got sick when I was 14, and it was a long journey. So I wanted to connect with people who might be in the same position themselves, and just feeling that I thought I had dealt with my grief. I didn't. And this is where the book starts, is me being very down in the dumps and going, okay, I need to make some changes because this is not living what I'm doing. And that's where the journey starts. And I think also what happens in book one is really a discovery of yourself as a woman. Like, I don't know, man. I didn't know myself. I was so hard on myself. I, judged every single thing. And I was, looking, I wish I could go back and talk to that person now and go, it's good. Just keep going, and give yourself a little pep talk. But we didn't do that then, and we didn't, I start the opening scene in book one where I go to a doctor's office, and the doctor doesn't write me a script. Like, it was very obvious I was depressed. They don't just whip out their pad and go, you're depressed. Here's your antidepressants. I will see you later. What they do is they show me that, you know what, you had all this time, like 1/3 of your life was spent looking after your mother, and you have not filled that third of your life since your mom died. You still have this blank space that you're floating around in that time when you used to look after your mom. You need to figure out what you want to do with that space in your life. And that's where it starts. And it's such a different conversation, I think, than a GP might have now. I don't know, maybe there is some that do, but that's where it starts. So it's a bit of the whole, each book has a new element that it deals with. But this first one, in terms of finding color, is really just being so deep in the weeds of unhappiness and finding a space, finding a way to sort of crawl out. And that's what book one is, wrapped in a nice travel doll, if you will.
That's amazing. I think that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that can relate to your journey of having taken care of your mum for such a long time. And then, she passes and you kind of feel like, now what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Time literally, it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't done it, but time in that period stands still. It literally does.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you're there, but you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Your overarching focus is being a caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
and life kind of happens in the background.
Surviving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're surviving, and I don't think you even realize it when you're in it.
Nope.
It's
No.
only when that person passes and you think, oh heck, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
My
now-
children are a couple of years older. Lots of things have changed, and there's a huge adaptation that now needs to take place.
Yeah.
So I think that is something a lot of people can relate to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yes, and I think there was a period of time that scripts for medicine were handed out like candy, and then now it's kind of come back around, and it's very hard to get medicine that a person needs these days. Anyways, maybe there'll be a balance at some point. I hope so. But in your book, Finding Color tackles complex themes with humor and sensitivity, which is, I think, a great balance. Can you elaborate on your approach to portraying these themes authentically while infusing your narrative with humor? And how do you believe this enhances the reader's experience?
I think it enhances it because it's just, oh gosh, if you're always so serious about everything, it's completely,
It's
I don't know.
draining.
I read a book the other day. I loved it. I'm not going to tell you the title of it, but I was so tired at the end of it because the poor person went through like bad. I just find it such a tiring experience. Otherwise, it's not as enjoyable. Nobody wants to be, just sad read. Like, oh no, this doesn't sound very exciting to me. I just wanted to. I think my driver really was about sharing this journey because I was so diligent with my notes and writing stuff down, and I know a lot of people that didn't, and I wanted them to remember. I wanted them to go in, and I think if you just read the book in terms of don't get too deep into it, you can just enjoy the story in terms of the crazy interactions with culture. I think that to me was the crispness that I don't know if I could have made up without the journals, because in the journals, as you go through interactions with culture, for example, in England, I got just confused with all the words, like all speaking the same language. I really had no idea what time they were talking about. So, and I would constantly be making cultural errors. And I thought, my gosh, how am I going to travel around the world if I'm making cultural errors in a place that speaks English? I said, oh my gosh, this does not bode well for me. But yeah, and just by the end of it, kind of getting through and going, okay, I can do this. I can travel. So it's, to me, it's the balance of those funny cultural interactions with sort of the darker things that happen along the way too.
We're unfortunately out of time. We need another 30 minutes. But Candace, can you hold up your book? Because
sure.
It's gorgeous. Just because it's gorgeous.
No, I love it. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and then it just continues on to the back. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I love the way the books are looking right now. The way that I'm seeing the font on the front cover, it really stands out. That's what I see a lot right now with books, and I love it. So it's easy to go, and it's very eye-catching, and that's what we want. So we love that.
Excellent. Well, each of the books will have the same girl on the front, and then she changes a little bit, and then obviously the scenery changes because this one went from England to Russia. And then they'll kind of, each of them will have their journey as well.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yay. Well, thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
We're so delighted to have you. Thank you, everybody who's been listening today and watching. We're so grateful. And on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and I don't know, everywhere we are, right, Bridgetti?
Absolutely. So huge big shout out to our audience again. And Candace, we absolutely want to have you back when your next book is out, please, because I think we didn't even cover half of what we wanted to ask you today. So we'd love to have you back when your next book is available. So again, huge shout out to our audience. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. You are watching the Writer's Corner live show brought to you by StreamYard, Creative Edge, and BeLive Media. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the same time on the next episode of the Writer's Corner live show. Thank you for joining us on the Writer's Corner live show. 30 minutes of insightful author conversations with some of the biggest names in the industry, including award-winning authors and international indie sensations. Join us on the next episode of the Writer's Corner live show.